Welcome to In the Zoom Where It Happens with our hosts, Shannon Spees and Brandon Krekel.
Hi, I'm Shannon Spees.
And I'm Brandon Krekel, and we are extremely excited to have Senior Vice President with Landmark National Bank, Jeff Phillips, here today. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Perfect. Well, we will just jump right into these questions that we have for you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you landed at Landmark National Bank.
Yeah, well, I say almost 20 years ago, I grew up in Oklahoma, was part of a community bank in Oklahoma that got bought by a bank, that got bought by a bank, that got bought by another bank, that ultimately ended up in me arriving in Kansas City. And we thought it'd be a cool short-term adventure. My wife and I were newly married, no kids, and it was close to where we both grew up. And it ended up being kind of our new home. And so I had the privilege of working for a couple of different community banks here in town, privately owned and publicly traded, and really kind of just fell in love with the whole community, not only socially and personally, but also the business community. And there was an opportunity about 2.5 years ago to help Landmark, who was already in Kansas City as a Kansas bank, and was already in Kansas City, just didn't have a well-known reputation, to kind of grow that. And so we had a chance to open a new office in Prairie Village, to add some new folks, and really to kind of spread what we think is maybe not unique, but maybe our delivery is unique. Kind of spread that message and have people maybe have different expectations of where they work and who they do business with. So we've been here for about 2 or 3 years, and it's just been overwhelming. It's been fantastic, the response that we've received both internally from our teammates here at the bank, but also just from new customers and folks in the community.
That's awesome. And before we started this, you touched on how important your team and your culture is at Landmark National Bank. Will you tell us a little bit about what that's like within the organization?
Yeah, I don't feel like we're not going to be one of those institutions that just dominates the universe with the most ATMs or the biggest signs at maybe arenas and things like that. I think what we try to focus on is that we try to do a few things really well, and then people that are attracted to that seem to want to be involved in that. And if you're not attracted to that, that's totally fine. But I think the way that I would classify that is there's kind of 3 main areas that we focus on. One, it feels like we and the people that are drawn to our little community are lifelong learners. So they're trying to read, be a part of groups at like CEO forums. They're involved in incubators. They read things that come from the chamber and are involved in some of the chamber committees to try to be better versions of themselves, be better business leaders, be better at business, but also just be the best version of themselves that they can be. The second thing I think is probably folks that understand the power of connection. So not just having a relationship, but understanding, okay, if you and I are committed to each other, or I'm committed to this community, that means, one, I have access to all these people and their knowledge, and I get to draw on that. All I have to do is raise my hand. But also I have a responsibility to contribute to that. So if I'm called upon of, hey, Brandon, you have an experience that you went through 6 months ago, and would you mind sharing with us kind of what the pros and cons were that you weighed out in your head, and what you wish you knew then that you know now because of those decisions? So I think that's an important one. And then the third, I think, is really just folks that are actively engaged in their local community, whether that means, buying local, shopping local, being on a board. They don't just kind of sit back and say somebody ought to fix that. They're really like in the middle of it, trying to make Kansas City or their local neighborhood better. So I'd say those 3 things probably kind of nail down what our culture is all about.
And I, just from what you said, I think that your culture really kind of transfers to your customers as well. And just from your vision statement of, and I'm going to read this because I don't want to mess it up. It's so good, but everyone starts as a customer and leaves as a friend. I mean, that's pretty powerful in itself.
Yeah, it's you can pick apart those words and say, oh, so you don't bank customers, you only bank people that aren't customers, and then they become customers. There's all sorts of things you can do on that. But I think what it tries to capture is the real spirit of, look, we know our numbers. Like we know them, we know our loan volumes, we know our deposit volumes, we know how much we charge and how much things cost. We know our results. But we don't focus on those as the goals or measuring of our success. We focus on truly, how do you build a community of folks that are helping each other be better? And then the results are going to take care of themselves. So it's not that we're saying anything maybe different than a bunch of other banks. I think you just have to, like, the proof's in the pudding. Like, how do you actually live out that statement that you're more focused on the relationship piece? And you're confident that the financial results will follow.
It's a great message and a good vision. Switching gears a little bit, you've talked about your support of the community and all that. There's a piece of artwork behind you. I know you guys have an emphasis on your partnerships with different artists in the community. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, I would not profess myself to be a art connoisseur. I like what I like. I admire anybody that would take the risk of criticism and praise to actually put something in some kind of physical or auditory form. Like, I think that's amazing. I have no skills on that front whatsoever, but we do like to support folks that are willing to take those risks. So, I mean, there's little things that we can do. One of those is we have rotating artists in our lobbies. And so once a quarter, through the KC Arts Coalition, we have a chance to display artwork from local artists. And then at the end of the quarter, this was both pre-pandemic and now hopefully post-pandemic, we host a party for them to allow them to, we invite our customers, but also allow them to invite whoever they want, and get a chance to show off their stuff. So, I mean, it's one little thing that we can do. We feel like there's a couple other ways that you can be impactful, and that's not a unique idea just to us, but it is one thing. Like I said, proof's in the pudding. If you say that these things are important, what are you doing to support them?
Absolutely. You would think I would have this mute thing figured out by now. We're a year in and still no such luck. So
put a dollar in the jar, Shannon.
Yeah. Thanks for beating me to it.
Right. Boy, would I be rich. So anyhow, so you mentioned in going back to just kind of your culture again, and continuing to grow and to learn and expanding on that. You are a Centurions alum. Am I correct in saying
Yes, that's
that?
right. Yeah.
Perfect. So how was that experience for you with going through our Centurions class, and what would be your advice to potentially those that are looking into it?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. And I'm not saying this simply because of the two of you being on the line, but it was easily the best thing I did for my career in Kansas City. And that's not in a self-serving way of, hey, I made all these connections, now all these people bank with us, which they do, by the way. But I thought it was unbelievable. So not being from Kansas City originally, I thought it is kind of tagged as your master's in Kansas City, your MBA in Kansas City. And the core tenets of the program are, one, that it exposes you to people that make you think, and really bring like your A game. Like all the time, I was just really challenged by folks that were thoughtful, had energy around tackling issues that Kansas City is facing, were in great positions of influence within their companies or within the community. So I was just really challenged to kind of up my game every time I was around them. And then I really appreciated being exposed to the issues that Kansas City is facing. You go through those monthly task force meetings, and it's education or transportation or healthcare. But it wasn't just, oh, woe is me, we've got these issues. It was, and here's what we're going to do about it. And what's next? Like, how are we going to make an impact on this? So I really appreciated that. And then also, I've been a recipient of a lot of mentorship around charity work. And so being exposed to all the different nonprofits and getting a chance to see, okay, that's one that I can get on board with. What their mission is and how they're living that out led to me being on a couple of different boards that, if not for Centurions, I wouldn't have ever been exposed to those organizations. So I can't speak of the program more highly. It was really impactful to me, but I also think it's just a huge asset for Kansas City.
Love that. We did not tell him to say that.
No.
We appreciate
100% my opinion.
I love it. Well, we do appreciate you sharing about that, and I hope to one day go through the Centurions program as well. It is awesome, and just to see who have come out of that program is impressive.
Yeah.
KAU. So
yeah.
Well, we like to get to know Jeff and our guests on maybe more of like a personal level. I'm just curious what some of maybe your hobbies might be. I know that you might like to explore local restaurants or watch different movies. Do you mind just telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I do. My wife and I actually really enjoy eating, and Kansas City is like this secret foodie market, right? Like, it is so cool, the different places to go. And one of the things that makes Kansas City really unique, I think, is how colloquial it is. So you kind of have these different neighborhoods that really have their own sense of who they are, and that comes out a lot in dining experiences. So we enjoy that. We also enjoy being outside, so that takes the form of some sports and things like that, but really enjoy like hiking. We've kind of early on set out that we were going to explore all these national treasures, and we took a brief break from that. Whenever you have young kids, carrying them on your back on long trails is not the funnest thing ever, but they've gotten to the age now to where I think they enjoy it. So we've kind of picked that back up. And so making trips to national parks and just places that you consider to be kind of untouched is something that kind of refreshes us. So that's where we like to spend a lot of our time and energy.
Love that. Do you have a favorite national park that you've been to?
Ooh, I would say it is tough. I would say probably the most awe-inspiring has been Glacier. And it's just because when we did that, we actually did that with my wife's mother and father. We hiked in and stayed in the chalets, that are kind of no electricity, no plumbing, all that, really in the park. And when we were hiking out, we had an encounter with a grizzly bear. Luckily, it wasn't an encounter that, involved physical contact, that it was on the trail and it was close enough that it was kind of knee rattling. But, you kind of have this setting of you're out in the wilderness, you see a grizzly, it actually started, it was August and it snowed on us. All that just blew me away. So I'd say probably Glacier probably left the biggest imprint on my heart.
Love that. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, we have truly enjoyed our conversation, and we could sit here for a couple of more hours and talk about landmark and national parks and the local restaurants for sure. Yeah. So, but unfortunately our time is about up, but we do have one more question we like to ask all of our guests here in the Zoom. And that is, what is one thing you would want people to know about Landmark National Bank?
One thing. We have got a sweet color. It's kind of like a fuchsia, and we own it. maybe that's not the one thing I should leave us with. I would say, maybe we feel like part of our purpose is to challenge you to expect something more from your relationships. And so don't settle for being in one of those situations where it's just kind of a vendor relationship, or in a job where you feel like your aspirations are to get the next level up, to be a banker 2 or a banker 3 or whatever. To actually, you should expect and you should want for yourself to be in a really vibrant community that leans on each other and is way more concerned with the team than they are with individual performance. And I think that's one of the things that we don't claim to have achieved, but I would tell you 100% we are dedicated to being better at it today than we were yesterday, and even better at it tomorrow. So that's probably the one thing I'd like to leave with folks about what we're trying to do.
Jeff, we can't thank you enough for joining us today and for sharing, a little bit about yourself and Landmark National Bank. It really was enjoyable just to get to know you a little bit more. And thanks for being such a great supporter of the chamber. And we just enjoyed it a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you.